All right. Howdy, folks. How are you? Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all of that stuff. It is Christmas Eve, and this is the first. Well, I'm recording this on Christmas Eve. You will have the pleasure of hearing this on Christmas Day if you're not busy with your family and opening presents and all that kind of stuff. But really, I kind of just wanted to have this ready for Christmas, actually, so it can run through the week. I'll be tweeting and sending it out, and just getting feedback. But in either case, welcome to Deep Cinema. I am your host, Theron Barney. Theron, that is as in the actress Charlize Theron. She's actually related to me. We are third cousins. Our mother, I'm just kidding, she's not. But that's how you pronounce my name, just in case it's foreign to you. Um, I'm basically a film fan, filmmaker, writer, producer, not necessarily in that order, but probably a film fan first, if I had to put them in order. Just grew up seeing movies from the time that I could see, and seeing the hardest of them. A quick note is that my dad took me to see Alien when I was 5. I'll just let that sink in for a minute. I saw Alien when I was 5 years old. So that should give you an idea of where I am with this. It's I'm probably heavier, more into sci-fi, more into fantasy, but as over the years, as you get older, you kind of mature. Not that being into sci-fi is not mature, but when you're a kid, you tend to gravitate, especially young boys, we gravitate towards that kind of stuff because it has the action and the lasers and the aliens and the monsters and stuff like that, and the spaceships and the cool toys. Um, that's why that happens. But we get mature and uh, get exposed to other films, and I'm a lover of all films, foreign films, including French films. I Silent films, short films, anything on YouTube, mainstream, and I probably you'll probably hear me rant uh, at some point about the current state of movies and where we are now. But I think this was actually a pretty good year for movies. I've seen more than a handful compared to last year that I was really like, wow, that was really solid. Um, but in either case, deep cinema is going to be. It's not as deep as it sounds, but deep cinema is going to be a weekly, sometimes twice, and hopefully thrice weekly podcast about not just reviews. Today's show, we're going to review 2 films, but reviews, movie news, TV news, anything going on within those boundaries. I will discuss not everything, but anything of note. Okay, anything that's trending or anything that's, to be frank, that's on my mind that might be bothering me or something I have a lot to say about. You can come here. So if you are part of the trades crowd, you get online and you got the trades, the deadlines, and the Hollywood reporters and the varieties on your feed. And there's some things that come up, and you don't have time to comment or whatever. Um, I'm someone that might discuss some of those topics. But again, not all of them. Just sort of the things that might be top of mind, top of list, trending. You'll kind of get an idea of what I like to talk about. I like to talk about the state of the business. So if you're a creative, or if you're a producer, or you're a writer, I'm going to speak from those 3 angles, but then also bring it back to just pure fandom, just being a pure fan of movies, very much like my partners on the Deep Hoops podcast. They talk about basketball, and you got many people, sports podcasters and sports shows um, breaking that stuff down. And this is essentially that. And of course, there are other shows that do what I'm doing, or at least discuss the topics that I am. But of course, no two people have the same view. So yeah, so I'm hoping to be able to roll this out multiple times a week as things come up. But usually, you'll be able to find a review posted on Monday, and I might discuss a brief topic on that show as well. The shows are going to aim to be anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. And yeah, so, as the week progresses, if something comes up, if something is of note, I will bring it up and discuss it. It could be, a 5-minute topic. It could be a 15 or 20 or 30-minute topic. I'm going to have a way to get feedback from you, and stay tuned for emails and that kind of thing. And hopefully, I can just sort of be your eyes and ears to what's going on out there, or you can just, hear me. You want to hear a madman rant about, movies and creative and business and all that kind of stuff. Then I'm your guy. But anyway, without further ado, welcome to Deep Cinema, and we're gonna dive right into The Last Jedi. Um, I saw the Last Jedi a week ago. As well, I saw it opening weekend, so which was last week, previous week. But I saw it on Monday and not that Sunday. Um, so here's how I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna just give you my overall thoughts and then just get into some bullet points. Because the film has been out, and I'm recording this on the second. This is the second Saturday it's been out, and it's kicked all kinds of ass in terms of the box office and that kind of thing. It's doing very well, but there's been some controversial elements when it comes to the reviews and the Rotten Score tomatoes versus. I'm sorry, the Rotten Tomato score versus. I sound like Yoda, flipping words around. Uh, the RT score versus the audience scores and things like that, and maybe some manipulation going on the part of Disney or the audience or whatever. Um, so a little bit of controversy, but nonetheless, the film opened to an astounding $220 million, and which is the second highest, only behind Force Awakens, which opened at 247 million back in 2014. Um, so, my thoughts on The Last Jedi. I almost loved it. I almost loved it. Uh, and honestly, the only thing that's really keeping me from outright saying I loved it was that I've only seen it once. Okay. Um, you got to understand. Okay, where I'm coming from as a Star Wars fan is, I never saw the first one in the theaters when I was a kid. I never walked into a theater and went, wow, I may have did that with Empire Strikes Back. I know I saw Empire Strikes Back in, on I was 7 or 8 when the movie came out, and it blew me away. And but I saw the first one on home video. Still enjoyed it, still love, but I have since seen it in the theaters, with the special editions and that kind of thing. But it wasn't like I had that experience that a lot of people describe. That's, oh wow, Star Wars, oh my God, this is new. Um, but I did sort of kind of had that with Empire Strikes Back, which is why Empire is my favorite Star Wars film. Um, I really liked Force Awakens. I thought it was fun. It was nearly a perfect movie. I mean, it's not no movie's a perfect movie, but it hit all the notes. But at the same time, that may have been its problem that I had with it, is that it was too perfect in its slavish devotion. You Star Wars fans will get that line. In its slavish devotion to the narrative structure of the first film. I understand it was a safe way to go. JJ, just sort of hit a solid base hit. And well, he had a grand slam in terms of the box office, but in terms of the storytelling, it was a safe, solid line drive right over second base into the middle of the field. And you couldn't really ask for much more than that. Set up the new character, set up this, the new worlds and that kind of thing in a new situation. Um, and I jumped ahead of myself, but I just wanted to touch back with the other Star Wars film, so you know where. So Empire is my favorite. Star Wars probably my second favorite. Um, Return of the Jedi. I obviously I love that film. That's probably going to be my third favorite. But I might say that this film right here, Last Jedi, right now, because I've only seen it once, you got to understand, I've seen those other films dozens and dozens, and maybe collectively hundreds of times between the first New Hope, Empire, and Return. I've for sure I've seen them hundreds of times. Last Jedi might be sitting right next to Return of the Jedi for me. Just walking out of theater, and it's still fresh in my mind. I've written down some things on it, but I've only seen it once. I can't compare a film. You can't trust me to say that I love the film and that I think it's better than any other Star Wars film when I've only seen it once, compared to seeing the other films hundreds of times, collectively, hundreds of times. Um, but right now, I'm only a week out. Hopefully, I will see it again within the next 2 to 3 weeks. I will certainly see it again, and maybe I'll revisit on a podcast again on that point. But right now, it's sitting maybe neck and neck with Jedi. Okay. Um, and that's where I say I almost loved it, because I don't love Return of the Jedi. I love Empire Strikes Back. I love the original Star Wars. Um, but I don't have the same amount of love for Jedi, and that's kind of where I'm sitting with it. I didn't love The Force Awakens. I didn't love it. I really, really enjoyed it, but I did not love it. And I've seen that 3 times, maybe 3 times, twice in the theaters, and then once again on home video. So, and then the prequels. We're Wait a minute. There's something called the prequels. No. I'm not gonna do that to George. Uh, uh, I will say this about the prequels. Um, I liked Revenge of the Sith. I liked Revenge of the Sith. I mean, just straight up, and I will debate you on that. I don't think it sucks. I mean, the consensus is it's just that, like, the prequels were some alternate universe, movies made by the man who created all this stuff, and they just slipped into our world. But I don't. I thought, at the very minimum, at least Revenge of the Sith tied up everything George was doing. However flawed you might think it is, it successfully tied up that trilogy and drove everything home for me. I mean, the sequence where all the Jedi are being ambushed around the galaxy, with John Williams' swelling music, is priceless. I don't care what you say. So anyway, uh, 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 Last Jedi, um, almost loved it. Ryan Johnson, um, really respect him. Really like his work. Loved Brick. I don't think I love any of his films as nearly as much as Brick. Matter of fact, I don't love any of his films except for Brick. Um, Brick was a it's a mini masterpiece, really. It is a fresh take on an old genre, and what he did with the high school, mixing two genres with the high school coming of age genre with the hard boiled detective noir, uh, sort of burnt out gumshoe thrown into high school was just genius. And I don't know where my DVD of Brick is. Somebody has it out there. I gave it to somebody. I don't know who it is, but if you're listening, you have it. Please get it back to me. But in any case, Brick was a brilliant debut film, even though Ryan had been making dozens and dozens of, short films over his career up until then. Um, and then he made Brothers Bloom, and I like that film. Don't love it at all. I just liked it. It was one of those films where you see it, while you're watching it, you kind of like it. It was a little slow at times that I remember, but I love the performances. I love the overall directing. I like the concept. It just was kind of an okay, solid, base hit kind of movie. And then Looper, um, you might think I might say I would love Looper, but I didn't love Looper. I really, really liked it. I really enjoyed it. Um, but then, I find that upon repeat watchings of viewings of Looper, it loses its value. It depreciates in value, and I can't. I never went back and studied why Looper does not hold the same excitement for me, um, when I first saw it. Because when I first saw it in the theater, I was like, "Wow, look, they're floating quarters, and this kid is like Akira, and he's got these powers, and Emily Blunt and Bruce Willis and Joseph Gordon-Levitt is killing it as imitating Bruce Willis, and this world I mean, great world." That he created, great sci-fi thing, and I like the time travel stuff. But then a lot of it is, like a lot of time travel movies, people that try to do time travel, when you really think about it, it starts to not make sense. So you kind of have to close your ears and la la la, you know, uh, uh, ignore, the either, if you like it and thinks it makes sense, then it's criticism. But um if you don't, you kind of have to just roll with it, and a lot shit. You have to roll with Star Wars, that they can travel at light speed and have laser swords and do all this other stuff. So anyway, Ryan Johnson, he knocked this out of the park. Directorially, Ryan Johnson knocked the shit out of this movie out of the park. I don't know that there's a better overall directed Star Wars movie than The Last Jedi. I don't. From what he was doing with the camera, to the blocking of the actors, to the directing of the actors, to his shifts in tone from comedy to drama to almost a satire in some ways. Um, to adventure. He covered so many things in this film, that collectively he's done before in his other movies. It's evident in his other works, but to put all that in a Star Wars movie, and for me, make it seamless, I'm on board. I was on board. And then some of the choices, and then keep in mind he wrote this as well. So, Ryan absolutely knocked this thing out of the park from a creative standpoint. Um, and here's the thing: I don't have much for you in the way of criticism of this movie, because again, I saw it once. There was a few things that as it was unfolding, I was like, I don't know. Like, so for instance, the casino uh, sequence. there was parts of that, like when they were stampeding on the horses and running around, that I just was okay. I can go with this. Um, but very little else. There were some things with the plotting that either I didn't get or I was questioning with Laura Dern and her defiance and why she was doing what she was doing, and Oscar and Poe Dameron, their conflict, you know, didn't seem to make sense at first in light of what she ultimately did. I know it was kind of like a switcheroo, but I kind of didn't buy it based on how she was acting in the first part of that. But it didn't derail my enjoyment of it, because whenever the film got into anything like that where my conscious brain is going, that's bullshit. um it just would launch into another sequence that was fun, or that was just visually uh uh uh, uh breathtaking, or whatever. It just kept, the film would not let me go. It got me around the throat and would not let me go. um and I credit all of that to Ryan Johnson. I love the way he threw away some of the setups. A lot of people, have been saying, a lot more than one person has said, it's like he's pissing in JJ's soup that he made with Force Awakens, with having Luke toss away the lightsaber when Rey, hands it to him. I expected the film to begin right there, actually, but it didn't. It was a little twist on that. Um, and then there were a few other things that he kind of was like this Force Awakens kind of unfolding of the narrative, little details. But I appreciated it all, actually. I love the chances that he took with some of this, like Snoke, like killing Snoke, came totally out of left field, because I'm like, okay, if Snoke is dead, then who the But after having since looked at some interviews with Ryan and why he made that choice, it made total sense. Made total sense. It's a dramatic choice that has more payoff later on than it would in the moment of keeping Snoke alive. Because now you have to come up. The directions of these characters would change drastically if Snoke lives there, because Rey has to go on. You can't kill Rey. So either Rey has to turn to the dark side right then and there, or she's just going to be a prisoner there. And now we got another rescue Rey situation, just like the first movie was. So I love that choice. I love killing Snoke. Killing Snoke. That sounds like a independent movie, independent adaptation of this movie, Killing Snoke. Anyway, uh, uh, so overall, I mean, look, I love the Porgs. I love Luke. I loved everything about Luke's character. He's this grizzled, disgruntled Jedi. Not unlike Ben Kenobi, but he's probably even more disillusioned than Ben Kenobi was. Um, Leia, loved everything about Leia here. Got a little choked up, got to admit, when she did the Force thing and she's outside of the airlock and she gets blown away. Now that was just yet another example of Ryan taking chances and it just paying off in spades every time. Almost killing Leia, or just when the bomb, when she gets blown. Just that image alone, that scene alone was shocking and engaging in and of itself. But then when she reaches out. Now here's the thing, and I want to get geeky here for a quick second. Everybody has been saying, well, these are critics, right, of this moment. And even people that like the film had called this out. Well, Leia never used the Force, and Leia, she's Force sensitive, but she's not, she never really practiced to that level of Force. Well, let me ask you this: how do you know what Leia has been practicing? Okay, in the time between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. The the idea was planted in Empire Strikes Back when Luke calls to her and she answers, from half a galaxy away. You know that, I mean, this, of course, when Darth Vader tells him about, uh, uh, uh I'm sorry, this was that Darth Vader tells him about Leia in Jedi, but Luke knew, in Empire. But anyway, he calls out to her, and Leia sort of, yes, I know it. She senses Luke. And who is to say that you just have to roll with it, that she is going to, practice. That's not something to be taken lightly. To explore that power, okay? If I could talk to my sister who's half a world away, I'm not just going to write that off as, as some one-time brain fart, I'm going to be like, let me see what else I can do. Let me see, if I can, let me see if I could, move something, or, I would be just taking little baby steps to see how far I can go with this force thing. But anyway, critics have said that, and to me, when Leia did it, it was like, duh, of course, of course she is down with the force. And to me, it was not that big of a feat, when you think about it, because we've never seen any of these characters, blasted out in space like that. And, the idea is that if you are, you find yourself blasted out of an airlock in space, you're weightless. That is the least amount of work that a Jedi or someone who's force sensitive would have to do, is to propel yourself or close the gap between you and the ship in a weightless environment. That does not seem very far outside of the realm of possibility for someone who is force sensitive. Now, if she is, on a planet with full gravity, or inside the ship, and she lifts herself and move, and we have seen Jedi, quote unquote, fly before. We saw it a little bit with Mace Windu. We saw it. We saw it in Empire Strikes Back, when Luke sort of jumps up in the red room. I call it the red room. I don't know what you call that room, but he jumps up and dangles on the cabling, and I think we saw it somewhere else, and I can't remember. But anyway, I mean, we saw Anakin jump out the window, or was it Obi-Wan? He jumps out the window onto the speeder outside. But anyway, I digress. Uh, so all of that, all of the choices, all of the new creatures, the visual style that I mentioned, Ryan just brought an energy and a classicness to the camera that was, in one terms, going back to George Lucas and Star Wars, but on other terms, he's bring this sort of modern sensibility about the camera, about what he wants to see, and how agile it is, very a lot of motion incorporated here, but then also very classical at the same time. Um, the performances were great all around. I can't really single any one person out, but Mark Hamill, shout out. he really brought it home as Luke. And Rey, the character of Rey, and I'm blanking on the young lady's name who plays her, but she, rose to the occasion, and I thought her performance might have actually been just a little bit more nuanced than it was, in J.J. Abrams' movie. So yeah, I mean, it's not much more I can really gush on. I mean, the moment that kind of made me do that with my feet in the theater was, where Laura Dern had everyone abandon ship, and she uses the space cruiser to light speed through the through the Star Destroyer or Dreadnought or whatever that ship was at the at the end. That was just awesome. And to drop the sound out and you see the light rays splitting it up, and just that was just straight up awesome. Okay. And Ryan just continued to uh, uh, um, hit those types of moments throughout the telling of this story, and it was all Star Wars. It was rooted in Star Wars. I think his love and his affection for Star Wars has ignited, a creativity and a boldness, that we did that was not there in Force Awakens. Okay, but understandably so. Understandably so. This is the first movie you're coming back with this continued trilogy. And J.J. Abrams was told by Bob Iger, president of CEO of Disney, personally, don't fuck this up, okay? So the best thing was to just be safe. Get Lawrence Kasdan, write a script, everyone signs off, and go make that. But with Ryan here, I didn't know what we were going to get because I wasn't that blown away by the trailers, to be honest. But apparently, he had been working on something that will probably be a Star Wars classic, for years to come. So for now, I put it on par with Return of the Jedi, maybe a little bit ahead, but I have to see. And let me quickly mention Adam Driver, uh, uh, and oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. I don't know if I'm just so excited I can't remember the names of characters or the names of actors who's playing. So I know Adam Driver is, but oh my God! But if you're listening, you know who I'm talking about. The big bad, the main bad, Snoke's. The Darth Vader wannabe, Snoke's lackey, so to speak. But now the tables have been turned. But anyway, Adam Driver is as intense as ever, and I like the direction it's going because I was like, well, you kill Snoke now. You're going to shift this over to him, and I didn't know how I felt about it, but I had been thinking about it, and I was like, okay, we're seeing the evolution of this character. He hit the points of, is he going to turn? Is he not going to turn? Is he going to turn? Is he not? But he not only he turned, but then the real twist was not that Snoke died, but that he didn't turn with Rey. When Rey, put out her hand and said, no, you can turn back to the good side. And he's like, no, you can come on this side and we can both rule. And of course we heard that line before from Darth Vader. That's the famous sales pitch, join me and we'll both rule the galaxy. And I really, really like that because that's just a purely evil notion that comes from a deep, dark place when you just want to rule everyone. You want to kill everything. And that's what he said. He said, forget everyone. Forget this empire or this new order. Forget the rebels. Just forget these porgs. Let's just kill everything and do this together. And part of me wants to see that movie. What does it look like if Rey turns over to the dark side and that actually happens? Anyway, that will conclude my review for Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and I want to move on to Bright really quickly because I'm running out of time. Okay, Bright, a Netflix film, very much hyped up and talked about. This is Netflix's biggest budget feature film to date that they've released. They have another one in production now with Martin Scorsese shooting The Irishman. I think is even more is more expensive than Bright. But I saw Bright last night, not even 24 hours ago, and here are my thoughts. Overall, I did like the film. It kept my interest. Maybe largely because of the charisma and just general screen presence of Will Smith. The guy is just he just, it is what it is. The guy, Will Smith is a star. And you look at his uh, uh, films, and a lot of them, it's hard to imagine anyone else in the roles. Not all of them, certainly not all of them, but especially when he's, I think his sweet spot is playing, the cop, the cocky cop. Although in this one he was a little more cynical, and just, a little more morose, I guess. His situation, his outlook on the world. Um, but beyond that, I thought this was a very well set up world. I thought the world building here might have been a little bit heavy handed, but it was interesting. Okay, at the very least, it was interesting. Nothing really, really deep, but the parallels of rich people being elves, and then poor people being orcs, and all, and most of the poor people are, they're janitors and garbage men and thugs and all. They're the lower ends of society, and then humans are kind of like in the middle. Humans can kind of choose to be, in the upper echelon, or they can kind of sink to a lower, kind of just like we are now. But like the world building, like the the little backstory, um, coming out around how this world came to be and that kind of thing. Um, let's see, David Ayer. Let me talk about David Ayer really quick. As I just talked about Ryan Johnson about Star Wars, just to kind of give, frame this. Who's making this, because that's really important to me. um I mean, it's not important to me as I'm watching a film, but if I'm going to talk about a film, I have to look at, okay, who made this, who wrote this, who, what did they do before, how does this fit in, what, because it may be the key to understanding certain things that may not be apparent, if you're not familiar with a particular filmmaker's work, or producer's work even. Some producers that really have a strong signature, that they put on the films. So anyway, David Ayer, is kind of, he's kind of a mixed bag for me, but um, you know, two things that David Ayer did that I like, what solidifies him for me. Number one is that he wrote Training Day. Okay, Antoine Fuqua directed the shit out of Training Day, but that was an awesome script. It was an awesome setup for a story, for a screenplay. If you're gonna write a screenplay and sell it to Hollywood, that was, conceptually, if you're gonna take on the cop genre, that was absolutely perfect. Okay. Um, Now the and then the writing of it, I don't know that Ayer has written anything better than Training Day, since Training Day. I don't know that he has. I don't know that he's been associated with anything better since Training Day. I mean, I know all the films he has been associated with, but I don't think they compare. Now there are moments that might compare, and sometimes he gets a little bit repetitive, as he comes from that world. He loves that world, that L.A., specifically that L.A. cop world. He's knee deep into, well, he's neck deep into the cop world, and the procedures and the forensics and the weaponry, and the politics and all that stuff. He writes all that stuff really, really well. He's an MVP in that regard. Um, Now, uh, uh, I was going to say, okay, so Training Day, and then I have to, call out the scene in Training Day where Ethan Hawke is about to get killed at the card table. Is still one of the best scenes. Like, if you had to, like, put, all time favorite scenes or best scenes, or if you want to subdivide and make that scene, like all time suspense scene, or all time suspense scene in a cop movie, that would be right at the top of the list. Okay, that scene with Ethan Hawke at the table. and then the sort of serendipitous nature of how he gets out of it, with the card, and it was whenever I see it, even whenever I do go back to that film, I always remember when I first saw it, and I remember having to go to the bathroom while that scene was playing, or well, I had to go several minutes, maybe 20 or 30 minutes before that scene. That's just how riveting Training Day was. But then when it got to that scene, I actually about pissed my pants, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. I about pissed my pants on that scene in Training Day. Okay, it was so well done. It was so well acted. It had such tension and dread, and you just knew he was going to die and die horribly at that. But then he gets out of it, and it called back to the moment, in the alleyway with the girl, and it was just genius, simply put. Okay, shout out to Antoine Fuqua for directing the shit out of that moment. The other thing about David Ayer I really loved, maybe not as quite as much as Training Day, but was End of Watch. End of Watch kicked my ass. End of Watch, simply put, kicked my ass. Love that film. Love that film. Love the format. I know a lot of people wasn't a fan of the whole the shaky cam, the found footage kind of look, but I loved it. I loved it, and it did stretch credulity in some cases as to why they were filming and all that. But man, oh man, End of Watch, several mini moments like the Training Day moment. David Ayer does tension within the cop drama. He builds suspense and does tension very. Not many people, filmmakers, do tension the way David Ayer does. So okay, and a lot of that is on display here with Bright. So and then his other films were solid, just not as memorable, not as good. But there, Fury comes to mind. I really like that one. I watched one recently, maybe about a year ago, the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I can't remember. Oh man, my memory again is going. And then Harsh Times with Christian Bale. I just thought that was okay. It was a great performance, but I thought it was okay. Had some really good, strong moments. So overall, David Ayer is solid. He's very solid. Now, when it comes to Suicide Squad, I did like Suicide Squad. Okay, I shouldn't say I really liked it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Suicide Squad. I actually enjoyed it more than Batman versus Superman. Um, and I'm not going to say and I can't say I enjoyed it more than Justice League because I haven't seen Justice League. Okay, and that's another conversation. But I enjoyed Suicide Squad. I like what they were doing, and in some cases what they were trying to do. But what David Ayer brings to all of his films is intensity. He brings an intensity to his films that it's almost unmatched. I mean, very few film. I got to think of people like Martin Scorsese or Joe Carnahan or Michael Bay that bring this sort of intensity to a specific genre. And man, oh man, David Ayer, has that in spades. He just intensifies the hell out of everything he does. So anyway, so with Bright, y- you know, th- some of the, I thought the action was good for the most part, but here's where we start getting into some of my cons. It got a little bit repetitive to me. Everything was just, shootout, shootout, chase, shootout, chase, chase, shootout. A little bit of magic thrown in, Uh, it, it was good. I mean that he shoots action okay. He doesn't. He's not the greatest action filmmaker, but it's okay. And I would say that I, there were some moments in there that, from when you look at it from a writing standpoint, that felt really, really written to me. And what I mean by that, and by the way, this was written by Max Landis, who is, he's Hollywood famous and he's internet famous. He's a writer, son of John Landis. In case if you're not familiar, but Max takes a lot of chances. He's very bold in his writing. Max's biggest sort of claim to fame was Chronicle, the superhero genre masterpiece. Yes, I'm calling Chronicle a masterpiece. That came out back in 2009. But here with Bright, there were a lot of written moments, and I'll give you an example. There was a scene where a very pivotal scene that kind of kicks all this off, where Will Smith and I forget his character's name, and then the orc played by Joel Edgerton. They're in this apartment complex and they're being sort of cornered because they have this, retrieve this magic wand. It's like the MacGuffin of this whole, universe here, this world. And so they have it, but it's a thing that everybody wants, because a magic wand is something that, as it suggests, can give you anything that you could wish upon, or however you would use it. So the cops, his own cops, are plotting against him right there, and they're going to they give him an ultimatum rather than just grabbing him up or shooting him or whatever. They just give him an ultimatum. They give him a choice. They even threaten his wife and kids. So they say, look, this orc that you're soft on, he's going to die no matter what. So you have to make the choices. You can do A, you can kind of let us take this magic wand and let him kill us, or you want to be the hero and you can die too, and then we'll also kill your family as well as the orc. So Will Smith, he doesn't back down, but he says, okay, I have to go outside. The point is, I don't understand how he got outside, because once he comes outside to talk to the orc and they have this big confrontation outside, him and the orc, I'm like, why did they let him walk out? It just didn't seem, for someone who wasn't totally on board with your plan of, okay, you could give us the wand, or we're going to kill you and everybody you love, or we're going to kill this guy anyway, and he didn't seem to be down with either. So why would you let him go outside to think it over? And I forget how, again, it's fuzzy in my mind how he got out. But he does get outside, and this confrontation happens, and then they come out and he shoots them, and blah 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 blah, the whole action thing. But that whole thing just felt very written. It felt like, okay, he wrote himself into a bit of a corner, and then had to come up with the reason that these crooked cops, trying to get the wand, would let Will Smith go. Where it just felt like if this was Training Day, his ass would have been in a chair and beaten within an inch of his life at the very least, and then maybe he would have been saved. You know what I mean? But I mean, of course, we've seen that many times before. We see it on TV all the time. So maybe it was just a matter of writing yourself into a corner and then having no other choice but to, come up with something to justify why he's going to go outside, because he could have very well gone outside and told Joel Edgerton's orc character, hey man, let's go. Because I think at that point, the wand, because if the wand was inside, the cops could have just took the wand. Anyway, I don't want to get too deep into it. It just felt very written, and there were several moments like that. Okay, things would happen, and it's going one way, and you're like, yeah, I like that, but how does that, very convenient, and that's going to happen. That is going to happen, especially in a genre, an action genre kind of piece like this, because they're just it's certain things can't happen until something that is very conventional happens to begin with. And it's just structure, in terms of the story, is not just how you set something up, but structure, it's in terms of a specific thing happening, a type of thing happening that has happened many times before in other films. Okay, so anyway, uh I I don't have much of a beef with this movie. It kept my, like I said earlier, it kept my interest the whole way through. I was entertained. Very gritty action, very very much an R-rated thing. I thought Noomi Rapace was probably wasted, although she was awesome as this villain elf, with all this power and stuff. But I'm a big fan of hers, Noomi Rapace. If you don't know, was the original girl with the dragon tattoo. Um, not the remake with Daniel Craig, but the original one, the Swedish one. Um, and there were a couple of other good performances in there, but overall it was on par from what you would expect in a film like this. There were a lot of real actors in this. A lot of the guys from the LA gang set that you see pop up in many TV and film parts like this. They help to sort of make the world real, and that's what David Ayer is all about. Now I know that the critics are pounding on this movie, um, and I'm not gonna say that they're completely amiss with the criticism, but I think it's a little bit harsh because at least for me, I know I wouldn't have been mad if I would have paid to see this in the theater. I wouldn't have been that mad at all. The fact that I saw it at home on Netflix and where I saw it was going at times visually actually made me wish I could have seen it on the big screen, or if it was available to see on the big screen. Um, so I don't know. Critics get their panties in a bunch about certain films, and it becomes trendy to talk about a film. I think a lot of the real fans that I've seen so far really like the film, but then there's a section of hardcore critics that are really dumping on it. Um, but hey, it doesn't. You could say what you want. It's a Netflix film. They I guess they kind of ride more on their criticism than their box office. But the thing of it is, subscribers are not going to be too upset if the movie falls a little short of their expectations. And I'm not saying that as an excuse that filmmakers, should, they don't have to aim as high if they're making films for Netflix. No, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that it's a different it's a different venue that the film is playing in. And I think, you can I have yet to actually see a really great Netflix movie, to be honest. I thought Beasts of No Nation was really strong and powerful. But was it great? No. I mean, it had great moments, but it wasn't great. But Netflix, they still have a ways to go. They are poaching a lot of Hollywood talent, and they've got the money, and they're putting these movies together that a lot of the studios did not want to make, in the first place, or for whatever reason. Not that they're necessarily bad projects, but we might be seeing, that in some cases the gatekeepers, in the old system might have just been right. Might have just been right. And I'm not saying that to single out Bright particularly, but you have to wonder why, was it just money that Netflix was able to coax away this project out of the hands of the majors, for theatrical release, and Will Smith and, all that stuff. But we're in a different time, and I think great movies can be seen and distributed anywhere. Um, and Bright, hopefully will, open the door for a lot more of this type of filming, because God knows Netflix they acquire and then they're making a lot of smaller films which don't get the same level of publicity. But maybe a movie like Bright will remind people, hey, we have other films too. Anyway, that's gonna be it for this inaugural episode of Deep Cinema. I hope you've enjoyed my ranting and raving on about Star Wars: The Last Jedi and Bright. So Merry Christmas. Today is Christmas as you're going to be listening to this, and but it is 2 days prior for me as I record this. But in either case, thanks for listening, and I will see you next week.